All right, so let's look at what the Bible has to say. Second law of thermodynamics. Everything's running down over time. Someone read Isaiah 51 verse 6 for us, if you would.
Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look on the earth beneath. For the heavens will vanish away like smoke, the earth will grow old like a garment, and those who dwell in it will die in like manner. But my salvation will be forever, and my righteousness will not be abolished.
All right, he says, look at the heavens, space. Look at the earth. It's going to do what? Vanish. Get old. What happens when something starts to get old? What's it doing? It's wearing down, right? It's running out of energy. It's breaking down. It's wearing down. Wait a minute. Everything runs down. He said everything in heaven, the earth itself, and all the people inside over time are running down. Does that sound familiar? Who said that? Isaiah. Isaiah said that. What did Isaiah know about today's modern laws of thermodynamics? Nothing. He knew nothing about them. But you know what he knew? He knew that everything that you could see and everything that exists over time wears down. Second law of thermodynamics says everything over time wears down. Evolutionists and the Big Bang theorists tell us that everything over time gets better. Now, which one are you going to believe? All right, the law of biogenesis. Genesis 1, verse 11. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit of the tree yielding fruit. How? After his kind, whose seed is of itself upon the earth, and it was so. Verse 21. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly. How? After their kind. And every winged fowl, after his kind. And God saw that it was good. In verse 24 and verse 25, he says, everything that you see is going to produce something just like itself. What scientific law is that? The law of biogenesis. Science says, well, they may produce something different than themselves. It could be. The law said, every time you're going to produce something like yourself. If you're a human, you'll produce a human. If you're a whale, you'll produce a whale. Science says if you're a whale, you may produce something that may not necessarily be a whale. Who are you going to believe? God and science agree. It's just the evolutionists that don't. But what do they claim about Christians? Christians don't believe in science. I'm reading science, and I'm reading God, and they're in agreement. All right, Genesis 1, 1 through 3. For every effect, there is a... All right, we exist, so where did we come from? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the deep. All right, verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and it was so. So we have light, we have earth, and as he goes on, we have plants, we have animals, we have everything that we need. And it all got here because it's an effect of a cause. And what's the cause? God. Now, if we're going to believe in evolution and the Big Bang, we have everything, but no cause.
That's faith. Their version of faith.
That's their version of faith. And we'll get to that in just a little bit. That's their version of faith. Can you prove, can you test that there was absolute nothing at one point? Can we test that? Can we go back in time and test that? No? Okay. So we can't test that part of it. Can we test that everything was created out of nothing? No? Can't test that part. Can we test that dead things make living things? No, can't test that. Can't repeat it. So we can't test that dead things make living things. We can't test that there was absolute nothing. And we can't test that nothing makes something. Is that science? One of the most important things of science is being able to test, isn't it? Be able to observe it, be able to see it, to touch it, to smell it, to hear it. So if you can't test it, see it, can we see nothing? Absolute nothing. Can we find that anywhere? Not even in space. So no. So we obviously can't repeat it. All right. So we know they violated a lot of laws of science, don't we? If it just violated one law of science, could we throw it out? Just one. Yeah. But how many has it already violated? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then believes in spontaneous generation repackaged as abiogenesis. They believe the same thing the people believe that flies come from dead meat. They just reworded it. That's crazy, isn't it? And they're teaching that to kids in school. All right, so let's look and see what God had to say about some things scientifically that we didn't even know yet. Let's look in Job for just a moment. Job is the oldest book of the Bible. Job chapter 26. What is Job's job? What does Job do? Anyone know? What did most people do in the Middle East? Raise cattle. All right. He was a shepherd. He was a farmer. All right. Job 26 and verse 7. He stretcheth out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing. So here you have a man who dates back farther than Moses. Job. And Job is saying, hey, the earth is out there and it's hanging on nothing. You know what the leading thoughts of the day was? Well, if you're Greek, if you fast forward even in time, if you're Greek, you believe someone's holding it. Who do you believe is holding it? Atlas. All right, so you have a big man out there holding it. Some believe the earth sat on the back of a turtle, and a turtle walked around the sun. People in India believe that the earth sat on the back of an elephant, and the elephant walked around the sun. Job, before Moses, said the earth hangs on nothing. What does the earth hang on? Are there strings out there? Are there strings out in space? No. The earth sits on gravity. Is there anything there you can see or touch? Now, how did Job, a little farmer in the Middle East, know before everybody else in the world the earth sat on nothing? How would he have that kind of knowledge? Was Job a really smart man? Or was Job inspired? Job was inspired. So the earth floats in space. All right? Job 38 and verse 16. I love the book of Job. He tells us a whole lot about a lot of things we didn't find out till way later. Job 38 and verse 16. What's that first part say? Hast thou entered into the springs of the sea? Wait a minute. Where does Job live? Desert. Farmer in the desert. What does Job know about the ocean? Now we're talking about pre-Moses here. What does he know about the ocean? There's no Greeks or Romans, or there's none of that running around. He is a farmer in the Middle East. What does he know about the sea?
He's never seen it.
Most likely he's never been to the ocean. So here he's saying, hey, there are springs in the sea. Do you know when we found that out to be true? After America was founded. The guy read this verse and he said, hey, if it's in the Bible, it must be true. And he went out and he found out, hey, guess what's in the bottom of the ocean? Springs. Now, you don't just come up with that information by yourself, do you? You don't just know things like that. Leviticus 17 and verse 11. Blood is the source of life. How did we kill our first president? We drained his blood out. We said, hey, he's sick. Let's get all the bad blood out of him. So we took his blood. And what happened? He died. We didn't know blood was the source of life. And we killed our first president. All right, the earth is round. Isaiah 40 and verse 22. When Christopher Columbus was coming to America, what did they say was going to happen to him? You're going to fall off the earth. Why did they say that? They said the earth is flat. You're going to fall off. All right, let's see what Isaiah had to say. Isaiah 40 and verse 22.
It is he that sitteth upon the circle of earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers that stretch out the heavens as a curtain, and spread them out as a tent dwelling.
So he said, the earth is round. Isaiah, when are you writing? Egyptian captivity, or not Egyptian captivity, but Israeli captivity. They're in captivity. And he's talking about the earth being round. How far away are we from here to Columbus sailing the ocean blue? Long way. Long way. We're talking 606 BC. What year did Columbus sail the ocean blue? Huh? 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue. 1492, 606 BC. How did Isaiah know the world is round? How do you know? He was inspired. That's the only way Isaiah could know that. So can we prove God told us things before we knew them? Which that is amazing in and of itself. Can we prove God taught us the laws of thermodynamics in His Word accurately? Can we prove that God followed and shows us the accuracy that Him and science agree? Now, can I take what they're teaching me in school and apply it to science and say these two things agree? Can't do it. It's not possible. There's nothing to reconcile there. It's not testable, it's not observable. So if you can't test it, you can't teach it, you can't observe it, then by their own definition, they believe something they can't prove. And what did they say that was their definition of? You believe something you can't prove. What did they say it was? They said that's faith. And if you have a faith, you have a what? You have a religion. And if you have a religion and you're teaching it in school, why do they say they can't teach Christianity in school? Because you can't teach what in school? Religion. They're teaching a religion, something they can't test, touch, prove, nothing in school to kids. This is something you're going to have to keep bringing home to them. You're doing something, you're believing in something you can't prove. But you say it's based on facts. It's always, you have to keep bringing that point back to center focus. Because everything about their belief is focused on what? Everything can be proved that I believe. That's what their whole belief system is based on. All right? So 2 questions they'll ask you whenever you're studying with them. First question. Why doesn't the Bible talk about the Ice Age? You ever had somebody ask you that? Let's turn over to Job for just a moment. All right, where is Job? Middle East. Long time ago. All right, verse 29. What does God say to it?
From whose womb comes the ice, and what we know?
Yes.
From whose womb comes the ice, and the frost of heaven, who gives it birth?
Mm-hmm. Verse 30.
The waters harden like stone, and the surface of the deep is frozen.
The surface of the deep. Now, the surface of the deep is not a river or a pond. The surface of a deep would be the ocean or a big sea. It's a great, huge, deep body of water. All right? Are there a lot of frozen seas in the Middle East? No? Think a shepherd in the Middle East has seen a lot of glaciers? So God is talking to a man in the Middle East, and he asked him about frozen deeps. Job fits in between the flood and Abraham. That's where he fits in history. Between the flood and Abraham. So if God is asking him, where did all of that ice come from? What's he talking about?
He tell you he created it. He's talking to Job. That, you know, Job was all upset about what he was going through.
Right.
And he tells him, well, you know, he did all this when he did it.
Right. Where were you when I did all these things? But he's sitting here telling him, he said, hey, where do you think that ice came from? Now, if he's asking that question to someone in the Middle East, that means he is seeing ice. Right? When would a Middle Easterner see frozen deeps? Unless there was a lot of ice on the earth. You ever thought about that? So some people say, hey, the Bible never addresses a lot of big events. Sometimes we just read over them. They're there, we just miss them. Have you ever had someone ask you about dinosaurs? Why doesn't the Bible talk about dinosaurs? Well, it does. Job 41 and verse 1. He says, can you draw out Leviathan with an hook, his tongue with a cord, which thou lettest down? Can you put a hook in his nose and bore his jaw through with a thorn? Will he make any supplications unto you? Will he speak soft words unto you? Will he make a covenant with you? Wilt thou take him for a servant forever? Will you play with him as with a small bird, or will you bind him for the maidens? Shall the companions make a banquet of him? Shall they part him among the merchants? Can you fill his skin with barbed irons, and his head with fish spears? Lay thine hand upon him, remember the battle, do no more. Behold, the hope of him is in vain. Shall not one be cast down even at the sight of him? None is so fierce that does dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand before me? This is a creature. Some people say, oh, that's a crocodile. If you stab a crocodile with a spear, is he going to know it? He says you're not going to hurt him. If I shoot arrows at a crocodile, can I do some damage? Yes, sir. If I hit him in the head, will he know it? I've seen crocodile hunters. He's saying this right here. You can hit him with your spear. It doesn't matter. All you're going to do is draw his attention. And if you get his attention, you're going to regret getting his attention. Does that sound like a crocodile to you? No. So we're talking about something here that is big and strong. Stronger than anything alive today. All right? You start looking at some of these ancient sea creatures in some of these museums. See how big they are, what their bones look like. Some of these, would you want to walk up to them with a spear and try to stab them? Some of these have teeth as big as we are. There's no way. So he's talking about Leviathan. You can look it up also in Psalm 104, verse 25, 26. They talk about ships going out and ships being afraid of them. Are ships afraid of crocodiles? No. But if there's something out there with teeth that's big enough and strong enough you can't hurt it with a spear or with arrows, might a boat be afraid of it? Yes. What do we call a giant creature that is big and strong and in the ocean? Loch Ness Monster. It could be a whale. But we know it's not anything that's alive today, right? All right, Behemoth, Job 40. Verse 15 and following. He said, Behold now Behemoth, which I have made with thee. He eateth grass like an ox. All right, it eats grass. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly. He moveth his tail like a cedar. Translated, his tail hangs long like a cedar. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together. His bones are as strong as pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. He is the chief of the ways of God. He that made him can make his sword to approach unto him. Surely the mountains bring him forth food, where all of the beasts of the field play. He lieth under the shady trees, is covered, or in the covert of the reeds and the ferns. The shady trees cover him with their shadow. The willows of his brook compass about him. Behold, he drinketh up a river, and hasteth not. He thrusteth that he can draw up the Jordan with his mouth. Some say, oh, that's an elephant. When was the last time you seen an elephant with a tail that's that big? That it would be likened unto a cedar tree. Now open up your children's dinosaur books. What's one of the first creatures you see with a big, long tail? That, by the way, eats grass. Brontosaurus. It's a vegetarian. It's huge. I can't even fathom how big that thing is. It has a tail like a cedar. What's God talking about? A dinosaur. Some say, well, why didn't God use the word dinosaur? You know when the word dinosaur was made? Man made it. They found it. They said, what is this giant creature? They found its bones. And they said, what is this? Well, what would people back then have called it more than likely?
Lizard.
Dragon, lizard. Nowadays, though, we have someone said, all right, look, dinosaur, fierce lizard. Let's mix words and make them. That word didn't exist. So if he just said dinosaur, everybody back then would have said, what's a dinosaur? So he's using the words that they know. All right? Does the Bible have predictive prophecy? We're not going to go through all of them, but we'll go through some of them. Daniel, written in 606 BC, writes about Medo-Persia, 539 BC. Greece, 334 BC. Rome, 197 BC. The church, 33 AD. Daniel also wrote predictive prophecy and accurate history for over 600 years of history. The United States has only been a country for 238. Think about that. We've only existed for 238 years. He wrote for over 600 years of prophecy. He wasn't alive for all 600 years, but he wrote about things 600 years in advance. Could you imagine someone at the beginning of the American Revolution writing about something that's still roughly 350 years away? How great is that? What's the magnitude of that? Can we test that? Yeah, we have the documents. Well, we have replicas. We know how far back they go. So we know he was writing during the time of King Nebuchadnezzar, which is 606 BC. And we know he wrote about the church, which is 33 AD. So we can do the math. That's amazing. The Messiah was said to be a descendant of Abraham and Sarah, Genesis 12, verses 2 and 3. Fulfilled in Nazareth, Matthew 1 and verse 1. You know, a lot of people say Jesus came along afterwards and sought out all the prophecies and fulfilled them. How did he determine where he was going to be born? Can you do that one? Can you determine where you're going to be born? He was born in Bethlehem of Judea. That's something, isn't it? Messiah, to be the descendant of Isaac. Genesis 17, verses 19. We can see it in Matthew 1 and verse 2. Said to be the descendant of Judah. Genesis 49 and verse 10. We see it in Matthew 1 and verse 3. Descendant of David. Isaiah 9 and verse 7. We see it. Luke 3 and verse 31. Born in Bethlehem. Micah 5 and verse 2. Seen. Matthew 2 and verse 1. And these go on and on and on and on. One thing you'll hear people say today. No scientist today believes in creation. You'll hear that taught in universities. No real scientist believes in creation. Anyone ever heard of Brad Harrab? Brad Harrab is an author. He has a bachelor's degree in biology. He has a PhD in anatomy and neurobiology. He's a member of the church, and he teaches. And he's a preacher, and he writes. I'd recommend getting some of his books because he writes some great books. One of my favorite by him is... just lost it. I'll get it to you in a minute. I meant to bring it with me. The Truth About Human Origins. I knew I'd get it in a minute. Brad Harrab. Harrub. Does he sound like a scientist? Bachelor's in biology, PhD in anatomy and neurobiology. Would you say he's educated? Would you say he's smart? If you're studying neurobiology, I'm sure you're smart. All right, another author there.
The name of the book was The Truth About
Human Origins. It is a fantastic book. Bert Thompson, bachelor's degree in biology, PhD in microbiology. Would you say a microbiologist is a scientist? Would you say a microbiologist is educated? And then the website there, apologeticspress.com. There's lots of material. There's tons of material for any and everything. Any questions? Any questions I might have missed, perhaps you found in your studies? Like whenever you're studying with someone who doesn't believe there is a God. Can you prove what you believe? Can we prove what we believe? Yes. Some say you can't prove there is a God. Unless Job was really smart. Unless Daniel was able to just guess 600 years of history perfectly accurate. Unless Isaiah was making predictions, and Micah and Joel, and they're all talking about the same person, and they all get all of it right, and Jesus just happened to be born in the right place at the right time. Or is there something else going on? You know, they say 3 things make a conspiracy. How many prophecies are there about Jesus? You only need 3 for something to be linked. Right? You ever heard that? 3 things make a conspiracy? We've got hundreds of things. Hundreds of things that you can't deny. This is when it happened. This is what was said. Perhaps there's someone here tonight that needs to obey the gospel. We've studied about God. We've studied about how to talk to someone who doesn't believe there is a God. Paul had to deal with that, didn't he? Paul studied with people who believed in other gods. We're going to have to discuss the Bible more and more frequently with people who don't believe there is a God. So we're going to have to know more and be sharper than ever, aren't we? Perhaps there's someone here tonight that needs to obey the gospel. Do you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God? Are you willing to repent? Are you willing to confess that He is the Son of God and be baptized for the remission of your sins? Or perhaps there's someone here tonight struggling with some sin in their life. Then don't delay. Please come while we stand and while we sing.
Hear the sweet voice of Jesus saying, "Come unto me."